Hello folks, Reginald Scott here again. Welcome to the video. Great to see you all again, and I hope you're all doing really well tonight, if it is indeed night for where you are. As usual, if you could do me a massive favor, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell and share with a friend. I do hope you can hear me. I'm not using any microphone. I just got back from a wet night ride. There is my trusty steed. So I went out for another group ride today. It's been a while since I've been out on my bike because every time I want to go riding, it rains. It's been raining a lot, and that is because at the moment I'm only riding at night. And the reason I'm only riding at night is because it's fasting month here in Brunei, and all Muslims and non-Muslims are not allowed to eat or drink in public during fasting month. Just as, like, you know, a nice thing for the Muslims here in the country, because it's a Muslim country, right? So it's not a good idea to be eating and drinking in public because everyone's fasting. So it's difficult for them to fast if they see people eating and drinking. So the rule here, because it's a Muslim country, is no eating and drinking in public. Now, you can still eat and drink in your car, you can still eat and drink in your hotel, you can still eat and drink at home if you're a non-Muslim, obviously. That's all fine, but just not flaunting it in public. So the issue is that very hot here in Brunei, especially during the daytime, and that means no drinking on the bike. So, you know, if you go out for a 30-kilometer ride and you're fasting, which is a relatively short ride, right, and you do 30 kilometers, which is an hour out in the hot sun here, and you don't drink, that could be really serious. So most people save their physical activity during this time of year until nighttime. So that's what I did tonight. And like I say, I've not been out much because every night that I want to ride, it chucks it down with rain. So it was a group ride. I went out on a shop group ride, and there was a few things that got to me. And, you know, because I'm such a total Karen, right? I'm a complete cycling Karen. And I just wanted to discuss it, and I also wanted to kind of ask your opinions. Okay. The first thing was, on the way to the shop to meet everyone for the group ride, I was going around the main roundabout in Brunei. It's the biggest roundabout in Brunei, and it's right outside my house, or the street where I live. It's literally 2 minutes away. And it's a 3-lane roundabout. And I was doing a full U-turn on the roundabout to get to the shop. So, you know, I was going all the way around. And about 3/4 of the way around, I noticed that the car in front of me, the driver was fully on his phone, just sort of texting away while going round a roundabout. And so I yelled at him. I just said, "Put your phone down," really loud. And he noticed me and immediately dropped the phone and carried on driving. And so the first question I wanted to ask you is, what level of interaction do you think is appropriate to have with drivers? Okay, because the other day, someone gave me a close pass. It happens all the time, doesn't it, when you're out riding? Someone came really close to me. Unnecessarily close. Like, there are some times when you know they're doing it on purpose.
You need to ease up out my face for something bad happened to you.
And other times where you're not quite sure. It could be incompetence, it could be aggression, you know, it could be one of the three, right? Or it could be, like, say, I don't know, they're just blind or something. But they came dangerously close.
That's danger close for artillery.
Danger close.
And then they stopped at a traffic light a few hundred meters down the road. And I could see them, and I could see they were stopped. And there was probably a point in my life when I would have just put the hammer down, chased after them, gone to the side where the driver was and given him what for, you know, given him a mouthful. And nowadays, it could be my age, I'm just like, you know, I can't be bothered. And not just I can't be bothered, I've sort of decided it's not worth it. Does that make sense? Like, I've been cycling for nearly 30 years, okay, let's say 20 years plus minimum. And in all those years, I've had multiple interactions with drivers, right? And some have been good and some have been bad. Like, even today, actually, I was crossing the street outside a shopping centre, and it was a zebra crossing. And this woman came screaming round the corner. She came screaming round the corner of this car park and blew straight through the zebra crossing while I was holding the hand of my 3-year-old daughter, sorry, she's not 4 yet. And she immediately parked like 2-3 spaces ahead of me. So I just crossed the road, looked across the road, went over to her, and it was a middle-aged lady. And she got out of the car, and I said, hello. I said, you know, I know you're in a hurry, but you do have to stop for pedestrian crossings. And if you didn't see us, that means you nearly hit us. And she looked at the pedestrian crossing, and her eyes kind of widened, and you could see that she was in shock, because I'm there with my little daughter, and she obviously hadn't seen us. She'd just been so focused, you know, so myopic, tunnel vision, that she'd blown right through the zebra crossing without ever seeing the three people standing there that were about to cross, including me, my wife, and my daughter. So I think, and she apologized, and that was fine. I said, have a nice day, and that was it. Just walked on, said, you're welcome, and off we went. But that's as a pedestrian. When you talk to people as a cyclist, I think you get a different reaction. The reaction that I got today from a driver standing there as a pedestrian waiting at a zebra crossing is a reaction I almost never see as a cyclist. As a cyclist, people are always on the defensive, and they're always looking for an excuse, and they either make an excuse or they get aggressive. So, and even if you approach them perfectly nicely, like there's been situations where someone's almost killed me, you know, well, almost hit me at least, and I've come alongside the vehicle and I've smiled and I've waved, hi, like that, and wind down the window kind of thing. So the wind down the window and I said, oh, terribly sorry, you know. I'm really, really nice and kind about it, and I've just said, terribly sorry, you know, just back there, you passed me a bit closer, just next time, can you give me a bit more space? And I've had some horrendous reactions to that. I remember many, many years ago in the UK, I did that in a village called Ruddington, which is on the outskirts of Nottingham. It was late at night, I was returning home from work, and I just, you know, did the same thing. I said, yeah, excuse me, just do you mind giving me a bit more space? It was middle of the night. It was like 11 o'clock at night when I'd finished my shift at work. I used to work at a leisure centre. And this van had gone by me. I think it was a van. He'd gone by me, and I just said, yeah, do you mind giving me a bit more space next time? Thank you, sir. Very pleasant about it. And he was like, I'll effing kill you. And he was, you know, reversing the van and, you know, getting out of the van. He said, I'm going to fucking kill you.
I will kill you.
Kill you! Once more! Kill you! Start the car!
Like, literally went mental at me and threatened to murder me. And obviously I turned around and cycled the wrong way down the road to avoid him. So after having experiences like that, and then also here in Brunei, there was a time when a big Hilux driver or something, it was either a Hilux, it's always the Hilux drivers. It was either a big Hilux or a big Toyota something. And he came dangerously close to me and two of my friends, two of my best friends in Brunei at the time. And I immediately saw red because it was utterly unnecessary. We were going around, again, that same roundabout I'm just talking about now. We were going around that roundabout and the lights were on red at every stage of the roundabout. So you drive for like a few meters and then you stop, and then you drive for a few meters and you stop. And he came round the roundabout and squeezed all three of us against the curb on the inside of the roundabout, as close as you possibly could, just to show us who was boss. And he was there in the car with his son, again, middle-aged guy, and I just lost it. And I got in front of him at the traffic light, and I waited till the light changed, and then I was going to go, but I wasn't going to go fast. And I was clipping in, just not taking my time, but not like being stupid about it, just to prove a point, which is you're not going anywhere. No one's going anywhere. There's no need to like squeeze us like that, right? Anyway, he decided to ram the back of my bike. So he drove straight into the back of the bike, and he actually wedged my tire under his plastic bumper. So the bike was upright. And I wish I'd had my camera on me. I wish I'd got my phone out and taken a photo, because I would have had so much evidence. Problem was, my two friends went through immediately. I got stuck behind, and then I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I literally couldn't move the bike. There was so much pressure on the back tire, it was wedging the tire against the road, and I couldn't physically pull my bike out. So I ran round to the side of his car and gesticulated, you know, and shouted angrily at him until he moved his car. And then we pulled over at the side of the road after I got very angry, and he called the police. And the police came and they took us to the police station. We went to the police station, and they sat there, and basically the police, they're not pro-cyclist in any way, and they were just like, look, if I want to press charges against the driver, now there was no evidence that he hit my bike, because when he backed off, the bumper just reformed, so there was no evidence that he struck my bike. And I was saying he did, and they said, look, if you want to try and prosecute this guy for doing what he did to you, then we will prosecute you both. That was their attitude. So you both go to jail. And I was like, okay. So they were like, apologize to the driver, and the driver apologized to him, and that was that. So no justice whatsoever. So like I say, now I'm, middle-aged, and I've got a kid, and I realise to some extent that nothing I have ever said to a driver has probably ever had a positive impact. It's a horrible thing to think, but even when I've approached people nicely, or even when I've completely lost my SHIT, right, I've never had a positive response, and that makes me think that driver might change their ways, or that I've made the road a safer place. So again, the kind of the question I'm raising here is, how much interaction do you have with drivers? Do you say anything at all to drivers? Do you gesticulate with drivers, like, wave signage at drivers, like either rude signs or just communicating with them through sign language? Do you talk to drivers? Do you stop and approach drivers? Do you think there's any reason to do it? Have you ever had a positive response where you've thought, you know what, I've made a difference? Or are you like me, jaded and cynical and, a curmudgeon, as someone called me the other day, which is pretty accurate, to be honest with you. I've always been a bit of a curmudgeon. I said to him, he called me an old curmudgeon. Someone called me an old curmudgeon in my comments, and I said, hey, I'm a middle-aged curmudgeon. I was a young curmudgeon before, and hopefully one day I live long enough to become an old curmudgeon. But are you cynical and jaded like me, and you've decided, look, there's no point in talking to people, just kind of let them go? But like I say, today I shouted more as a warning than anything else, just like, pay attention, I'm here, kind of thing. But where do you draw the line? Where would you say, you know what, it's just not worth it? Or you would say, you know what, I'm going to stop, I'm going to talk to this driver. And has it ever worked out for you? And there's the thing. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is not to be too kind of negative against drivers. Because as cyclists, we also have a lot of responsibility. But tonight, in the group ride, what the point I'm actually trying to make here is, tonight in the group ride said, no lights and no helmet, no ride. So what they were saying on the post on Instagram before we joined this group ride was that if you don't have a helmet and you don't have bike lights, you don't ride. Okay? You don't ride with us, basically, because it's a night ride, you got to have lights. That's their rule. It's stated literally on their post about joining this ride. I'll even stick it in here somewhere. We were riding along, we were doing 40 kilometers an hour down like an overpass type thing, joining onto a highway. And it's a fast road, there's lots of traffic, and my bike is really good. It rolls really well. I've got really nice high quality NTN bearings in my rims, in my hubs. I've got TPU tubes in. I'm running quite high pressure. My bike rolls really well. So I was rolling faster than the group. And so I moved out to the right to roll, and the group broke up basically, and there was about 4 riders in front and everybody else was somewhere behind me, and a gap opened up, and so I was riding sort of to the right of the 4 riders in front of me, because I was I was going faster, and I presented my chest to the wind just to slow myself down a little bit, and then I was going to move in behind those riders. Now my bike, I've got 3 lights on my bike. I've got one on the back of my helmet here, very bright, 50 lumens. I've got 2 more 50 lumen lights on the back of my bike. And then on the front of my bike, I've got 2 flashing 50 lumen lights, and I've got one 400 lumen spotlight and another 500 lumen spotlight. So I look like a rally car on the front, okay? Loads of lights. And I do a shoulder check to merge in behind the 4 riders in front of me. So do my shoulder check, and I don't see anything. All I see is in the distance, the lights of the riders that are coming up behind. So I think I've got plenty of space. So I start to move over behind the 4th rider who's in front of me. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I see something just as I'm beginning my merge in behind the other riders. And so I abort the merge and I pull back out to the side. And it's another rider. And this rider doesn't have any lights on the front of his bike. Okay. So now I'm alongside this rider because he's come up like a bullet to rejoin this 4 riders in front. And he was basically bridging the gap. And I didn't see him coming because all I can see when I turn and do a shoulder check is the headlights of the cars behind me on the other lanes and the lights in the distance of the riders behind who actually have lights. So I missed him. And then, as I say, I only saw him last second and thankfully moved out of the way. And so I start a conversation with him and I say, "You've not got any lights?" And he's like, no, I've got one behind. He says, "But I don't have any in front." I said, "I've got 4 lights. Would you like one?" And he said, no, it's fine. It's okay. I'm good. I said, "Are you sure?"
Go on, go on, go on.
No, seriously,
Go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on.
"You don't want a light?" Because I said, "I nearly just hit you because I didn't see you coming and I'm worried about your safety." Which is partly true. I'm also worried about my own safety. So I really, really wanted to give this guy a light. And he said, no, it's all right. It's fine. I said, "Look, we can ride ahead, okay, fast, pull over, let the group go by while we switch lights. I'll give you a light. It's got a rubber strap." Because initially he was saying, "Oh, I don't have the mount for it." I said, "You don't need a mount. It's got rubber straps. I'll just strap it to your handlebars. It's fine." He's like, no, it's fine. No matter what I tried with this guy, he didn't want a light. Okay, fair enough. So, I thought maybe he's worried about losing the group. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll try and stop the group. So I went to the head of the group to speak to the lead rider. So there was the lead rider who was from the shop, who was leading the group. And I get to the front, and I'm about to talk to him about this situation and say, "Do you mind just pulling over 10 seconds? I'll switch lights with this guy and we'll carry on." It's no bother, right? It's only 10 seconds. We've got plenty of space on the hard shoulder to pull over, right? Everyone will be safe. We'll just stop the group for 10 seconds. I'll switch lights with the guy and then we'll carry on, right? Can anyone see an issue with that? I couldn't. But like I say, while I was talking to the lead rider, I noticed he didn't have any lights on his bike either. So the whole event published online, the advert said, "No lights, no ride." And the lead rider of our night ride group tonight didn't come with lights on the front of his bike. And here's silly old Karen cyclist who's got 4 lights on the front and 3 on the back. So as cyclists, we really need to take responsibility about making sure we're visible. One of my pet peeves is ninja cyclists. Now, I might look like a ninja cyclist.
You are in luck. You see, my highest grades were in stealth.
Often people in my videos, because they see my black arm warmers, they think I'm a ninja cyclist, but you'll notice my headgear is white. I've got reflectors on the back. I've got lights. My back is white, okay, completely white. And my front is, only this section is black. The rest is white, okay? I've got reflectors on my bike. I've got lights on my bike. I'm pretty visible. So again, I hate ninja cyclists. I don't get people who want to be all dressed in black. I don't get people who want to drive around with no lights. This is irresponsible and it pisses off drivers. And that's the last thing we should be doing, is pissing off drivers, because they've got enough, well, they have enough reasons in their own mind to be angry at us without us giving them actual reasons to be angry. And it ticks me off as well as a cyclist, because I don't like riding with people like that. I feel like they're putting me in danger unnecessarily. So it always makes it difficult. And I hate being that guy, which I know I am that guy. I know I'm that guy who moans about other people. And that's why I have a blooming YouTube channel, because I can't help myself. But for goodness sake, guys, It's a night ride on a freaking highway with a speed limit of 100 kilometers an hour. Like, we weren't on the highway the whole night, but we were on the highway at least 40% of the ride, minimum. Lights is a bloody minimum. And then what is the group leader? Like, I used to organise rides from my shop. I used to organise night rides. I used to organise daylight rides. I always have lights on my bike, even on the daytime. I have a daytime flashing light, even in the day. But on the night rides, I had a sack, a literal sack, one of those bags for life, right? And it was full of front and rear lights. Like I say, if anyone turned up to my night ride and they didn't have like not lights, or they only had one light on their bike, like front and rear, I'd give them more lights. I'd be like, here, take these lights. And I'd insist they take them. So every rider had minimum like 2 lights. Because for me, 2 lights is a minimum. So again, what I'm trying to say is, can we be a bit more responsible? If you are one of those people who doesn't light up at night, and I mean like you need to be lit up like a Christmas tree. If you're one of those people, you really need to get your act together and start sticking more lights on your bike. I know drivers can be idiots, right? And I know they can hit you no matter how many lights you've got. But don't give them the excuse. Same with helmets. I know you don't have to wear a helmet in many countries. In Brunei you do, it's the law. And I don't mind it, I love wearing a helmet. I think cycling helmets look cool. Sorry, I do. But, sorry, I just think helmets are necessary, because even if you don't think helmets save lives, which I happen to think they do, and even if you don't like wearing a helmet, just wear a bloody helmet. Simply because if somebody does hit you, the first thing I hear drivers say is he didn't have lights, he didn't have a helmet. And they try and shift blame onto you. And because a lot of police out there are total a-holes who hate cyclists as well, they're looking for any excuse to blame you as well. So if you're not using a helmet and you're not using lights, they've got the excuse they want to blame you. And that's the sad reality of things. That's the sad reality. At least if you end up in court, you can turn around and say, I was visible, I was following the law, I was wearing a helmet, I was doing everything I could to maintain my safety, and this twit, to put it mildly, still managed to hit me. Surely I'm not in the wrong here, okay? And maybe you've got a fighting chance of winning that case.
That's the game! Nothing further, Your Honor.
The final thing was, we got to a roundabout. It's a wet road because it's been raining. And as we approach the roundabout, the lead rider goes onto the roundabout because there's no cars coming. It's a mini roundabout, small roundabout. Not mini, but it's small. And it's a long group, a long line of riders. And I'm towards the back, and there's about 4 or 5 riders around me. And as the group sort of reaches the roundabout, I notice 2 cars coming pretty quick. So here's the question. In some groups, they will act like the whole group is one long vehicle, right? And they will just blaze straight through. And it will even apply to red traffic lights. So even if the light turns red, the cycling group will continue through the light on red as if the light hasn't changed, as if they are one long vehicle, like a long bus or something, okay? Like a bendy bus or something. That's one way of doing things. And it can also apply at junctions like this. The other way of doing things is you go when you can go, you stop when you should stop if there's something coming, and then when you can go, you just catch up the group. And it should be the responsible of the ride leader to notice at the junction if people have split up, because they should know they're at a junction, and they should be observant and be seeing what cars are coming, and see or check, do a check to see if everybody made it. And if everybody didn't make it, they slow down the pace so the other riders can catch up. Okay, so that's the 2 different ways of doing things. Now, when we reached the roundabout, I wasn't entirely sure what this group was going to do, so I stopped. And it turned out I was the only rider who was going to stop, and everybody else just blasted through. And then there was this whole thing with the cars on the roundabout having to halt because the riders just blasted through. And then I had to wait for the cars to go around, and I had to rejoin the group later. And it took me a good few minutes to catch the group up because they were moving pretty quick. But I still caught them. So, my final sort of question to you guys is, what do you think is appropriate? Do you think it's appropriate to pretend that the group is one long vehicle? Because as far as I'm aware, both in the UK highway code and the highway code in other countries, that is not any kind of law. There's no law that states a cyclist is allowed to blast through a junction or a red light just because they're in a cycling group. As far as I'm aware, they should still stop, and the group should either pull over and wait or slow down to allow them to catch up. What do you guys think? How should you do it? Should you stop and wait, or should you just blast right through? Right, folks, I'm going to go to bed now. It's pretty late. It's probably 11 o'clock at night now. Anyway, it was great to see you all. I always hope that you guys are okay. I genuinely value your contributions to the channel. And I hope to see you in the next video. I've got a few videos coming up. Next one is going to be about some misconceptions about carbon fiber, because I've been waiting a long time to make that. And one of those misconceptions is about my opinions on carbon fiber. Some people seem to get that mixed up, so that's going to be fun. And then after that, if I find time to boil all my chains for a particular reason, I will be doing 2 videos on how to lube your chain and how to make your own lube at home for very, very low cost that will last you years. So there you go. Those are the next videos coming up. As always, folks, like I say, when you're out riding, do stay safe, and hope to see you in the next video. Good night.